Minneapolis, 1987. The fall air carried a biting chill that evening, the kind that seeps through layers and settles in your bones. Nicollet Mall, usually bustling with shoppers and business people during daylight hours, had quieted as darkness fell. Only the occasional pedestrian hurried past, collar turned up against the wind, eager to reach their destination. But on the corner, near what locals called the Crystal Court, a young boy no older than 13 sat on an overturned milk crate, a battered guitar case open at his feet. The streetlights cast long shadows across his face, highlighting cheekbones too sharp for his age. His fingers, red from cold, moved across the strings of a guitar that had seen better days, coaxing out a melody that seemed to dance with the autumn leaves swirling around him. The song was unmistakable to anyone who knew music, a Prince tune, one of the Minneapolis icon's gentler ballads that spoke of love and longing. The boy didn't sing, just played, his eyes half closed in concentration. A few coins glinted in his case, not enough for a proper meal, but perhaps enough for something warm to drink when the night grew colder. He'd been there for hours, long enough that the security guard from the nearby building had stopped asking him to move along, perhaps touched by the pure sound emerging from the worn instrument, or perhaps simply tired of the routine. Whatever the reason, the boy continued to play as the evening deepened, his breath forming small clouds in the air, visible when he passed beneath the pools of light from the street lamps. No one paid much attention to the dark town car that slid silently to the curb across the street. No one noticed the tinted window rolling down just enough for someone inside to listen. No one saw the brief conversation between the driver and the passenger, or the momentary hesitation before a decision was made. The boy certainly didn't notice. His world had narrowed to his fingertips and the strings, to the music that transported him somewhere warmer, somewhere better than this street corner with winter approaching and no clear plan for shelter. When the car door opened and closed, the sound was lost in the urban symphony of distant traffic and wind whistling between buildings. The figure who emerged moved with a distinctive grace, stepping lightly across the street with purpose. A few passers-by glanced, then did double takes, their pace slowing as recognition dawned. But they kept their distance, creating an invisible bubble of respect around the approaching silhouette. The boy finished the song with a flourish that belied his young age, a complex finger-picking pattern that even seasoned guitarists might struggle to master. The last note hung in the air, vibrating like a question mark, and in that moment of silence, a voice spoke. "That's not how I play it." The boy's eyes snapped open, his head jerking up so quickly that his woolen hat nearly fell off. Standing before him, illuminated by streetlight and somehow seeming to generate his own glow, was Prince Rogers Nelson, the icon, the legend, the Minneapolis miracle, dressed in an impeccably tailored purple suit that caught the light in ways that seemed almost supernatural. His presence transformed the ordinary street corner into something electric, something sacred. The entire block went silent, completely, utterly silent. Even the traffic seemed to pause. A woman across the street froze mid-step, her shopping bag dangling forgotten from her hand. Two businessmen coming out of a nearby restaurant stood with the door half open, letting the warmth escape without noticing. Everyone held their breath, as if a spell had been cast, and the slightest movement might break it. The boy couldn't speak. His fingers clutched the neck of his guitar so tightly that his knuckles went white. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. Prince tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable behind custom sunglasses despite the darkness of the evening. "May I?" Prince extended a hand toward the guitar, small, elegant fingers adorned with a single silver ring that caught the streetlight. The boy nodded, still speechless, and surrendered his instrument with trembling hands. Prince settled on the edge of a nearby planter, seemingly unconcerned about his immaculate suit making contact with the rough concrete. He positioned the guitar on his knee, took a moment to examine it, then began to tune it with practiced efficiency. The boy watched, transfixed, as Prince's fingers moved across the strings, adjusting, testing, until he was satisfied. And then he played. The same song the boy had been playing, but transformed. Where the boy's version had been impressive for his age, Prince's was transcendent. He imbued each note with feeling, bending strings to create emotions that words could never capture. He played as if the battered old guitar was a priceless instrument, giving it the respect of his full artistry. And as he played, a crowd began to gather, first a few people, then more, forming a circle around the unlikely duo, phones forgotten in pockets, conversations silenced mid-sentence. For 3 minutes and 42 seconds, though many would later swear it was both an eternity and not nearly long enough. Prince played on that Minneapolis street corner for a homeless boy and a growing crowd of stunned onlookers. When the final note faded into the night, there was a moment of reverent silence before someone began to applaud. The sound spread like wildfire until the entire block resonated with applause and cheers. People were wiping tears from their eyes, strangers turning to each other with expressions of disbelief and joy. Prince handed the guitar back to the boy, then leaned in close to speak to him, their conversation private despite the audience. The boy's expression transformed from shock to disbelief to something like wonder. Prince reached into his jacket and removed something, a small purple guitar pick with his symbol emblazoned on it, and pressed it into the boy's palm, closing his fingers around it. Then he stood, smoothed his suit, and with a small nod to the crowd, walked back to the waiting car. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to hear more incredible moments from music history that remind us of the power of human connection. The crowd didn't disperse immediately. They lingered, as if hoping for an encore, or perhaps just to remain in the magic of the moment a little longer. Several people approached the boy, dropping bills into his guitar case, asking questions he seemed too dazed to answer. A local news photographer who happened to be passing captured a single blurry image that would appear in the next day's paper. Prince walking away, the boy staring after him, the guitar cradled in his lap like something newly precious. What the newspapers didn't report, what the growing urban legend didn't include, was what happened next. The boy, whose name was Marcus Allen, didn't spend that night on the streets. The owner of a nearby music store, who had witnessed the entire scene, offered him a place to sleep in the back room of his shop. The following morning, when Marcus awoke, he found a new guitar case beside his makeshift bed, with a note indicating it was a gift from an anonymous benefactor. Inside was not a new guitar. His old one had been touched by greatness and was now priceless to him. But there was a small purple envelope containing a backstage pass to Prince's show that weekend, and enough money for a hotel room, proper meals, and new clothes to wear to the concert. The impact of that chance encounter rippled outward in ways no one could have predicted. Marcus, inspired by Prince's kindness and encouraged by the music store owner, began taking formal guitar lessons in exchange for helping around the shop. His talent, always present but now nurtured, blossomed. 3 years later, he would play his first professional gig as a backup guitarist for a local band. 5 years after that, he would release his own album, the cover art featuring a worn purple guitar pick that never left his possession. Prince never publicly acknowledged the encounter. When asked about it in later interviews, he would smile enigmatically and change the subject. But Minneapolis musicians spoke of how, after that night, Prince became a quiet benefactor to several youth music programs throughout the city. Anonymous donations funded instruments for schools in underprivileged neighborhoods. Scholarships appeared for talented teenagers who couldn't afford lessons. Sound equipment was mysteriously delivered to community centers. The intersection where it happened became an unofficial landmark. Visitors to Minneapolis would sometimes make pilgrimages to the corner, standing where Prince had stood, perhaps hoping to absorb some lingering essence of his genius. After his death, it became a memorial site, often adorned with purple flowers, handwritten notes, and occasionally guitar picks. Marcus Allen went on to have a respectable, if not legendary, career in music. When asked about his inspiration, he always told the story of that cold Minneapolis evening. He didn't have to stop, Marcus would say. He didn't have to notice some homeless kid playing his song. But he did stop. He did notice. And he didn't just give me money, though he did that too. He gave me his time. He showed me how the song was supposed to sound. He showed me what was possible. The moment became larger than both of them, a symbol of Minneapolis's musical heritage, of kindness from the famous to the unknown, of music's power to bridge impossible gaps. The photo, grainy and imperfect, found its way into museums and documentaries. The story was told and retold, sometimes embellished, sometimes simplified, but the core truth remained. On a cold autumn night, a musical genius paused his life to share his gift with a boy who needed it. Decades later, long after Prince had left this world, Marcus Allen, now a respected guitar teacher with silver in his beard, still kept that purple pick in a small frame on his studio wall. Next to it hung a handwritten note, its paper yellowed with age. "Play on, young brother. The music never stops unless you do." It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. Some students would ask about it. Others knew the story already. To all who inquired, Marcus would smile and say, "Let me tell you about the night the music changed my life." And sometimes, when the studio was empty and the day's lessons were done, Marcus would take down his old guitar. Not the one he used for performances or recordings, but the battered one from his youth, and play that song again. Not Prince's version, not exactly, though he could replicate it note for note if he wanted to. Instead, he played something that was neither purely Prince nor purely Marcus, but a conversation between them, spanning decades and dimensions, a dialogue in music that began on a street corner and never really ended. If you've been moved by this story of an unexpected encounter that changed lives, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary tales of musical legends and the lives they touched in ways that were never recorded on any album. In a small corner of the Minneapolis Institute of Art, there's a humble display that most visitors walk past without a second glance. It contains that single blurry photograph, a replica of a purple guitar pick. The original remains with Marcus, and a simple caption that reads, "Sometimes the greatest music happens offstage." Museum curators have noted that this modest exhibit, tucked between more elaborate displays, is one of the few that regularly makes visitors stop, read, and stand in contemplative silence. More than once, staff have found guitar picks left there, small offerings to a moment that proved music's power exists not just in perfection and performance, but in connection and compassion. In a world that often celebrates the grand and spectacular, it serves as a quiet reminder that sometimes the most profound impact comes from the simplest human gestures. One musician showing another how a song should really be played.